In the summer of 1780, a merchant's wife in Edo, Tokyo, starts her afternoon in a kitchen at 35 degrees Celsius. No ice, no refrigerator, no plug in any wall. By evening, she will serve her family salted mackerel that walked 70 kilometers on foot from Wakasa Bay, rice balls wrapped in bamboo sheath still safe to eat tomorrow, and a bowl of fermented crucian carp from Lake Biwa, pulled from beneath stones after 2 years underground. The modern Western reader has probably, in the last year, thrown out a fridge because the power went off for a day. Japan spent more than 1,000 years engineering a kitchen that did not need electricity. Number 6 on this list is the natural refrigerator at the base of Mount Fuji that kept ice for the shogun. Number 1 is a fermented food from Shiga in continuous production for 1,500 years. These are 25 forgotten Japanese ways seniors kept food fresh in summer heat. Number 25 is kiriboshi daikon, sun-dried strips of white radish that were the most reliable shelf-stable vegetable in a pre-refrigeration pantry. After the first frost, farm households peeled the roots, cut them into thin strips, and hung them from bamboo poles under the November sun for 2 to 3 weeks. What came down was dry, chewy, faintly sweet, and shelf-stable for a year at room temperature. In summer, when nothing green was coming from the garden, dried daikon was the vegetable that fed the family. In late Edo, a fresh daikon cost about 15 mon, roughly $3 today. A modern bag runs 300 yen. You could replicate this on a wire rack in 3 weeks. No equipment needed. Number 24 is the ohitsu, the wooden rice container that held cooked rice through a hot afternoon without letting it sour. The traditional wood is sawara or hinoki, both Japanese cypresses containing natural terpene compounds that inhibit bacterial growth. Rice cooked in the morning is still safe at dinner. In late Edo, a sawara ohitsu cost around 300 mon, roughly $40 today. A modern hinoki ohitsu from Nagano runs 16,000 yen. The workshops still turning ohitsu by hand from single blocks of cypress can be counted on 2 hands, and their masters are all past 60. Number 23 is take no kawatsutsumi, the practice of wrapping rice balls and preserved foods in the dried sheath of the bamboo plant. Farmers collected fallen sheaths in early summer, washed and dried them, and stored them by the bundle. Wrapped around a rice ball, the sheath breathes so food does not sweat, contains phytoncides that slow bacterial growth, and hold shape through a workday. Documented back to the Heian period, the practice remained standard until dried nori replaced it in the mid-1800s. Bamboo sheath still sells today in Kyoto grocery stores for a few hundred yen a bundle. Number 22 is the shiso leaf wrapped around sashimi in a Kyoto summer. The compound in its oils is perolaldehyde, which suppresses the bacteria most likely to spoil raw seafood. The Japanese did not need to isolate the compound to know it worked. From the Heian court onward, sashimi was arranged on shiso and often wrapped in a leaf, and the practice was food safety, not decoration. The green plastic grass in a Western supermarket sushi tray is a direct visual reference. A modern Tokyo supermarket sells 10 leaves for 200 yen, $1.40. Before refrigeration, 1 leaf could be the difference between dinner and food poisoning. Number 21 is grated wasabi, one of the oldest documented antibacterials in the Japanese kitchen. Real wasabi, Wasabia japonica, releases allyl isothiocyanate when the fresh rhizome is grated. Antibacterial research by Lin, Preston, and Wei in the Journal of Food Protection in 2000 documented that allyl isothiocyanate kills the bacteria most likely to cause food poisoning from raw fish, including strains of E. coli and Staphylococcus aureus, at concentrations easily achieved in a small dab of wasabi. It is not folk wisdom, it is the mechanism. Wasabi was listed in a Japanese medical encyclopedia dated to the year 918. A modern rhizome from the Izu Peninsula sells for 3,000 yen, $20. Japan had food safety chemistry 600 years before Western medicine did. Number 20 is the use of hardwood ash, called aku nuki, to preserve nuts and seeds otherwise inedible. The specific case is tochi-mochi, a rice cake made with Japanese horse chestnut seeds. Fresh tochi seeds contain enough saponin to make a person sick. Traditional practice in the mountain villages of Nagano, Gifu, and Yamagata was to soak the seeds in hardwood ash slurry. The alkaline pH neutralizes the saponin, and the detoxified seeds could be pounded with glutinous rice into cakes that keep for weeks. A 2024 Ethnobotanical Review documented 22 accounts of the practice, more than half specifying oak or hardwood ash. A cake at a mountain market runs 300 yen. Fewer than 30 traditional workshops still make tochi-mochi anywhere in Japan. Number 19 is kanpyo, dried ribbons of calabash gourd that Japan turned into a shelf-stable staple, an edible tie and a sushi filling. The gourd is peeled into strips about 3 centimeters wide and sun-dried in a single day. In 1712, Tadahide Torii, the lord of Mibu domain in Tochigi, ordered gourd seeds from Minakuchi in Shiga and began cultivation. Today, Tochigi accounts for 99% of Japan's kanpyo, with Shimotsuka City and Mibu Town producing 75% of that. A packet at a Tokyo supermarket runs 300 yen. Total output in 2016 was 268 tons, down from thousands in mid-Showa, and the surviving producers are aging cottage households with no clear succession. Number 18 is Nozawana Zuke, the fermented turnip greens of Nagano's snow country. Nozawana reach almost a meter in length. After the first frost softens them, families in Nozawa Onsen village harvest bundles, wash them in the outdoor onsen baths, and layer them into barrels with salt. Over 1 to 2 months, natural lactic acid fermentation turns them sour and shelf-stable through winter into summer. The seed line traces to a Buddhist priest in the 1700s who brought turnip seeds from the Tennoji region near Osaka. Nozawana Zuke was designated an intangible folk cultural property by Nagano Prefecture in 1983, the first such honor for a local food there. A village jar runs 1,000 yen. In a Nagano winter, this was survival. From here, the countdown gets older and more precise. The next practice depends on a fungus Western molecular biology did not fully sequence until 2008, more than 1,000 years after Kanazawa fermenters were using it. The one after depends on a single 78-year-old man in Sakai, who is the last person in Japan who can build the wooden barrels Japanese cuisine cannot live without. Number 17 is Kabura Zushi, the winter fermented sushi of Kanazawa. A thick round of turnip is sliced open, a slice of salt-cured yellowtail tucked inside, and the whole thing packed in koji rice mold with slivers of carrot and yuzu peel. The barrel is weighted and fermented 1 to 2 weeks in hokuriku, winter cold. What emerges is silky, sour, and packed with the umami of enzymatically broken down fish protein. The Shijimaya Hanpo shop, founded in Kanazawa in 1875, still runs seasonal workshops. The koji fungus doing that work, Aspergillus oryzae, was fully genome sequenced by Machida, Yamada, and Gomi in a 2008 paper in Oxford's DNA Research, documenting the enzymatic pathways that release the umami compounds. Japan was using this mold industrially for over 1,000 years before Western molecular biology confirmed what the Kaga household already knew. Number 16 is the kioke, the massive wooden cedar barrel that has been the fermentation vessel for Japanese soy sauce, miso, and sake for 400 years, and which is now on the verge of extinction as a craft. A traditional barrel stands taller than a person, holds 1,000 liters, and lasts 100 to 150 years. Colonies of lactic acid bacteria and yeasts live in the wood grain itself. A kioke inoculates itself for a century. Today, 99% of Japan's roughly 1,000 soy sauce makers use stainless steel. Fewer than 1% still use wooden barrels, most on Shotoshima Island in Kagawa. In late Edo, a full kioke cost 3 ryo, roughly $900 today. The last living master who builds new kioke by hand is Takeshi Ueshiba of Fuji Kioke Factory in Sakai. In 2012, Yasuo Yamamoto of Yamaroku Shoyu, 5th generation on Shotoshima, sent 2 carpenters to Sakai to learn the craft directly from Ueshiba so it would not die with him. Number 15 is kasuzuke, the practice of pickling fish, meat, and vegetables in leftover sake lees. Sakekasu is a moist cream-colored paste, 8% alcohol packed with living koji mold, lactic acid bacteria, and sake yeasts. Ingredients buried in it ferment slowly, absorbing salt, sweetness, and umami over weeks. Vegetable kasuzuke is called narazuke, named for Nara Prefecture, and traces back 1,200 years. Fish and meat kasuzuke were widespread by mid-Edo, when sake brewers actively promoted the practice. A modern jar of Nara narazuke runs 1,500 yen, $10. Kanazawa kept the sake lees jar and pickled next winter's fish in it. The Western brewery poured the lees into the storm drain and called the loss a rounding error. Here is where the samurai class shows up in the kitchen. The next practice cuts a fish along the back and not the belly, because slitting the belly recalled ritual suicide and cutting off the head recalled a defeated soldier. Number 14 is himono, the sun-drying of whole fish that form the largest single category of Japanese food preservation before refrigeration. Freshly caught fish is gutted, split, salted, and hung to dry for 1 to 2 days. The moisture leaves, the flavor concentrates. A fish that would spoil in 6 hours becomes food that lasts for weeks. The technique called odawara biraki opens the fish along the back with the head left on. Slitting the belly recalled seppuku. Removing the head recalled a defeated soldier. Around Odawara, this was inauspicious, and the technique became standard. In late Edo, a rack of himono at Nihonbashi cost 15 mon, $4 today. Nakamura Mitsuru, second-generation owner of Maruwaka Shoten in Tokyo's Yushima district, still hand-prepares overnight himono. His father founded the workshop in 1946, and fewer than a dozen comparable operations remain in Tokyo. Number 13 is takuan, the sun-dried and bran-fermented daikon pickle. Fresh daikon are hung on tall wooden yagara racks in the sun until they wilt over 1 to 3 weeks. The dried roots are packed in layers with rice bran, salt, and sometimes persimmon peels, weighted with stones and fermented for months. The final product keeps for a year. The dish is named after the Zen priest Takuan Soho, exiled from Kyoto in the 1620s. Legend says Shogun Iemitsu Tokugawa tasted it at Takuan's temple and said, if it had no name, it should be called takuan zuke. In Miyazaki's Tano district, Assistant Director Tsugumi Kuroiwa still oversees the traditional method. But since the 1960s factory rollouts, sun-dried takuan producers can now be counted in the low hundreds nationwide. Number 12 is the muro, the earth-cut root cellar that held daikon and root vegetables at stable temperature through summer heat. A muro was cut into a hillside or dug behind a farmhouse. Temperature stayed around 10 to 12 degrees Celsius year-round, humidity high enough that daikon kept moisture for months. Underground storage in Japan goes back to the Jomon period. In late Edo, a laborer digging a muro earned 300 mon a day, $8 today. Before electric refrigerators arrived in Japanese homes, in the 1960s, every farm household had one. In a spoilage summer, families with a working muro survived. Families without one did not. Number 11 is the rei bako, the wooden icebox that stood in Meiji and Taisho-era homes as the bridge between traditional preservation and modern refrigeration. A block of ice sat on the upper shelf. Cold air sank through vents into the lower compartment. No electricity, no compressor. Artificial ice production began in Japan in 1870 when Yukichi Fukuzawa fell ill with summer fever, and a professor at Daigaku Toko operated an imported ammonia refrigerant machine to produce ice for his relief. In 1872, Kahei Nakagawa opened the first shaved ice shop in Yokohama using ice cut from Hokkaido. By mid-Meiji, ice factories had spread across the country. A Taisho-era antique Reibako still sells for 200,000 yen on the collector's market. Japan built the wooden Reibako from Fukuzawa's borrowed chemistry and a block of Hakodate ice. American factories built the compressor, killed the ice trade, and taught the world to want the plug in the wall. Number 10 is Saikyo Yaki, preserving fish by marinating it 1 to 3 days in the sweet white miso paste of Kyoto. Kyoto is landlocked. Every fresh fish arriving had to be preserved en route. Saikyo Shiro miso is made from rice koji, soybeans, and salt, with a much higher rice-koji ratio than darker misos. Fish fillets pressed into the miso get salt-cured, koji enzyme tenderized, and gently sweetened at once. 3 days in the miso, and a fillet keeps another week without refrigeration. The practice is documented back to the Heian court. A modern jar from a Kyoto miso house runs 1,000 yen, $7. You could replicate this in your own refrigerator this week. 3 days later, you would have a Kyoto-quality dinner. Now we get to the practices where the physical stakes are highest. The next one required men to walk 76 kilometers overnight without sleep. The number one item involves burying a fish preparation under stones for 2 full years. Number 9 is the Saba Kaido, the Mackerel Highway, a 76-kilometer trail from Obama Port on Wakasa Bay to the Demachiyanagi district of Kyoto. Fresh mackerel would not last the 2-day cart trip to the imperial capital, but if the fish were lightly salted at the dock and carried overnight on foot by porters called Kaido Kasegi, the salt would penetrate exactly the right amount by morning, not preserved for months, preserved for the meal it would be eaten at. Records go back to the 8th century when Wakasa was designated a Miketsukuni, an official food supplier province to the imperial court. A Kaido Kasegi carried 40 to 60 kilograms and earned 300 mon per crossing, $10 a night. Izuju, the most famous Saba sushi restaurant in Kyoto, has been selling the definitive product in Gion since 1781. In summer, only foot runners without sleep could get mackerel to Kyoto before it spoiled. Number 8 is the umeboshi at the center of an onigiri, the most portable and heat-tolerant meal in the Japanese kitchen for 600 years. The umeboshi is a plum, salt-cured, and sun-dried with red shiso for months until intensely sour and packed with citric and acetic acids. The acid content is high enough to suppress bacteria that would normally spoil rice in summer heat. A rice ball with an umeboshi in the middle, wrapped in nori or bamboo sheath, keeps safely for a day in a farmer's field, a soldier's pack, or a pilgrim's satchel. This is why onigiri became the standard troop provision by the 16th century, and why they remain the standard convenience store snack today. A modern minabe jar runs 300 yen. Japan tucked one salt-cured plum inside a fistful of rice and fed farmers, soldiers, and school children through 100-degree summers. The West sealed a lunch in plastic and printed contains preservatives on the label. Number 7 is the Yuki Muro, the snow cellar of Niigata's snow country. In the mountains around Uonuma, snow falls in meters through winter. Farmers built wooden chambers, layered them with rice straw for insulation, packed 1,000 tons of snow into one side, and held the storage side at 3 to 4 degrees Celsius all summer. Vegetables kept crisp, rice kept sweet, sake kept mellowing, not through winter, through summer. The practice appears in the Nihon Shoki, Japan's second oldest chronicle, compiled in the year 720. It remained common in Niigata households until electric refrigerators reached rural Japan in the 1960s. Today, the tradition survives at Hakai-san Brewery in Minami-Iwanuma, which rebuilt a 1,000-ton Yukimuro in 2013 to age premium sake. A 3-year snow-aged bottle sells for 4,000 yen. Traditional household Yukimuro are effectively extinct. The last generation to build one from memory is now in its 80s. Number 6 is the natural refrigerator inside a Mount Fuji lava tube, specifically the Fugaku, Fuketsu, and Narusawa Hayoketsu caves, which have held a constant 3 degrees Celsius year-round for over 1,000 years. The caves formed during an eruption of Nagaoyama in the year 864. Ice pillars form and never melt, even in August. Farmers in Yamanashi used these caves as free refrigerators for centuries, storing silkworm cocoons, tree seeds, and food. The temperature was low enough to arrest silkworm egg development, letting sericulturalists synchronize an entire silk harvest across the region. Both caves were designated Natural Monuments of Japan in 1929. At its peak in early Showa, Japan had close to 100 functioning himuro nationwide. Today, only 5 remain. 3 of them are around Nikko. A ticket to enter both Fuji caves costs 600 yen today, and the interior temperature is unchanged from the day the shogun received his summer ice from the same volcanic system. Number 5. The Kanazawa Himuro tradition, in which the Kaga clan packed winter snow into stone and thatch mountain cottages and delivered it 500 kilometers overland to the Tokugawa shogun in Edo Castle every summer. Every June 1st on the old lunar calendar, a ceremony called Himuro no Hi opened the Yuwaku Himuro Koya cottage outside Kanazawa. Kaga runners then carried packed snow across 500 kilometers of overland trail without stopping. The route ran through Toyama and across the Japan Alps, and runners rotated the load hand to hand, so no single porter had to sleep. Common Kanazawa townspeople who could not afford ice ate Himuro manju cakes shaped like blocks of ice on the same day. Of Japan's 3 remaining commercial himuro in Nikko, the Yondaime Tokujiro house was nearly closed in 2006 when the aging 3rd generation Ryoji Yoshiara decided to wind up. Yuichiro Yamamoto took over that year as the 4th generation. Fewer than a dozen people in Japan still know how to cut and pack ice for a working himuro. Number 4 is karasumi, the salted, pressed, and sun-dried mullet roe of Nagasaki, one of Japan's 3 great chinmi delicacies. The intact roe sack of the gray mullet is salt-cured for a week, desalted, pressed under weighted boards for another week, and sun-dried for 10 days, with the oil rising to the surface wiped away by hand each day. The Japan Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries selected karasumi as one of Japan's 100 greatest local dishes in its 2007 nationwide survey, and Nagasaki karasumi received geographical indication protection on July 20, 2023. The technique was developed in Nagasaki in 1675 by Yusuke Takano using mullet from the Nomozaki district, and karasumi was presented as tribute to Shogun Tokugawa Ienobu in 1712. Takanoya, the specialty shop founded by Yusuke Takano's family, is still operating in Nagasaki 350 years later. 100 grams of premium karasumi today sells for up to 20,000 yen, $130. Here is the top 3. The next item traces to 33 fishermen whom Tokugawa Ieyasu personally moved from Osaka to a mudflat in Edo Bay in the 1590s, and whose descendants are still selling the same preserved food from the same island 400 years later. Number 3 is Tsukudani, the shelf-stable preserved food made by slow-simmering small fish, shellfish, and seaweed in soy sauce, sugar, and mirin until the water content drops to the point spoilage becomes impossible. In the 1580s, Tokugawa Ieyasu was aided in battle by fishermen from Tsukuda village in what is now Osaka's Nishi-Yodogawa. When he came to power, he brought 33 of those fishermen to Edo and gave them a small artificial island in the mouth of the Sumida River, formed by filling in a tidal flat. They named it Tsukudajima. Because the island was cut off during bad weather, they took surplus catch and boiled it slowly in salt, later in soy sauce imported from Chiba, to preserve it. That preserved food spread across Japan through the Sanken Kotai system. 3 shops on Tsukudajima still make tsukudani using Edo period recipes. Tenasu Honten was founded in 1837, Tsukudani Marukyu in 1859, and Tsukudagen Tanakaya in the late Edo period. 400 years of continuous production from the same island by the same 3 families. Number 2 is kusaya, the fermented and dried fish of the Izu Islands, made in a naturally fermenting brine continuously reused for 300 years without ever being emptied. In the Edo era, the Izu Islands, especially Niijima, paid their taxes to the shogunate in salt, leaving islanders with very little for fish preservation. Rather than throw away the brine after each batch, they reused it, adding a little fresh salt each time. Over centuries, that brine fermented into a distinct microbial ecosystem thick with acidic acid, propionic acid, and free amino acids. Fish, especially mackerel, scad, and flying fish, soaked in this brine for 8 to 20 hours and sun-dried 1 to 2 days, became kusaya. The brine has an 8% salt concentration, less than half of standard curing brine, but the microbes do the work. Ikeda Shoten on Niijima is now on its 4th generation. Ryota Ikimura still uses the same brine his great-grandfather started 300 years ago. Niijima once had more than 50 kusaya producers. Today it has 4. Number 1 is funazushi, the fermented crucian carp of Lake Biwa in Shiga Prefecture, considered the direct ancestor of all modern sushi and continuously produced in the same region for at least 1,500 years. The process is measured in years, not days. In spring, nigorabuna, a crucian carp native only to Lake Biwa, are caught before they spawn. The fish are cleaned and packed in salt for a full year. In the following spring, the salt is rinsed off and the fish are repacked in a barrel with cooked rice and weighted with stones. For 1 to 2 more years, lactic acid bacteria dominated by lentil Lactobacillus buchneri ferment the whole preparation. The rice dissolves. The fish softens to where bones become edible. What comes out is intensely sour, intensely umami, and shelf-stable indefinitely. Records of funazushi appear in wooden tablets from the 8th century Nara period, and in the 10th century Engishiki, procedural records of the imperial court. Uoji, a specialty shop in the Kaizu Port District of Takashima City, is now on its 7th generation. Owner Kensuke Sasaki also runs the Korean Auberge next door. A single serving at Korean runs 12,000 yen, $80. Japan buried a crucian carp under a stone in Shiga for 2 years and eats what emerges as a national treasure. American refrigerators print the expiration date in bold and throw the rest away. Japan did not have electric refrigerators in most homes until the 1960s. Every Japanese person alive today over 75 learned to preserve food from a mother who had never plugged a fridge into a wall. These techniques are not folklore, they are the working memory of a country that engineered a kitchen without electricity. Try one small thing: put an umeboshi in tomorrow's rice ball. Dry a bundle of daikon on a wire rack for 3 weeks. Wrap a piece of fish in a shiso leaf and watch how much longer it keeps. Japan buried a fish in stones for 2 years and called it a national treasure. The West wrote a date on a plastic wrapper and threw away everything past it. One country kept the method, the other kept the receipt.